Friends, the mobile phones we carry in our hands all the time today are backed by three incredible inventions that changed the world forever. This is the story of Alexander Graham Bell, Martin Cooper, and Andy Rubin, who completely transformed the face of human communication.
Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am so pumped to take you on this journey. Before we even dive in, just take a second and look at the device that's probably in your hand right now, or maybe it's sitting right next to you on your desk. That modern smartphone is an absolute marvel of engineering, isn't it? I mean, it's your camera, your post office, your map, your entire encyclopedia, all rolled into one. But how exactly did we get here?
It's so easy to take it for granted, right? But have you ever actually stopped to think about the literal centuries of history resting right there in the palm of your hand? It's wild to think about, but the smartphone isn't just one smooth, continuous line of progress. Actually, scratch that, it's more like the result of three massive, kind of accidental, and fiercely competitive leaps in human history. Today, we're going to explore those three specific inventions and the three brilliant minds, Alexander Graham Bell, Martin Cooper, and Andy Rubin, who completely flipped the script on human communication forever.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap. We'll start way back in 1876 with the voice, jump almost a century forward to 1973 for the mobility, and finally land in 2003 to talk about the brain. Let's do it.
Era 1. Breaking the silence.
So to really wrap our heads around this first leap, we kind of have to put ourselves in the shoes of someone living way back in the late 19th century. If you wanted to send a message over a long distance, your communication was completely tied to physical wires strung across the land. People relied heavily on the telegraph, and the telegraph was limited to just dots and dashes, Morse code, just cold, emotionless clicks. You could send information for sure, but you couldn't send the human experience. Alexander Graham Bell, though, had this totally groundbreaking vision. He wanted to transmit the actual human voice over a wire. He wanted to capture the emotion, the tone, the whole shebang of human speech. But here is a super surprising piece of trivia that makes this whole story so much richer. Bell's research wasn't actually about building some giant telecom empire at first. It was originally driven by pure empathy. Both his mother and his wife were deaf, so his initial research into speech and hearing was genuinely motivated by just wanting to help deaf people communicate better. The telephone was, really, a beautiful byproduct of his dedication to the people he loved most.
And that brings us to this fateful, frantic day in his lab, March 10, 1876. Bell is working, and his assistant, Thomas Watson, is stationed out in another room. Suddenly, total disaster. Bell makes this clumsy mistake and accidentally spills battery acid all over his clothes. In an absolute panic, and definitely not thinking at all about making history, he just frantically calls out through the new, completely untested device they had just set up.
He just yells out, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you." And here is the absolutely crucial part. Watson, sitting in a completely separate room, hears Bell's voice come through the device perfectly clearly. He heard the distress. He heard the urgency. It was practically a miracle of science at the time. And just like that, those became the famous first words ever spoken over a telephone. Born from a moment of sheer panic over a spilled chemical, the journey of the human voice traveling over wires officially began.
Era 2. Breaking the chains.
Okay, so Bell gave us the voice, but there was a catch. For an entire century after that 1876 breakthrough, we were literally chained to our walls. At home, at the office, your phone was tethered to a physical line. By the 1970s, the world was absolutely desperate for true freedom and mobility, setting the stage for an epic corporate showdown. On one side, you've got the telecom giant AT&T. Their vision for mobility was incredibly narrow. They thought mobile phones should strictly be installed inside cars. But on the other side, you had Motorola and a visionary engineer named Martin Cooper. Cooper fiercely fought against AT&T's limiting mindset. His vision? He thought the phone shouldn't belong to a car, it should belong to the individual person. He wanted you to be able to actually walk down the street with it. And Cooper didn't just talk about it, he built it. On April 3rd, 1973, he stood right out on a busy New York street holding the world's very first portable mobile phone. And guess who he decided to call first? In just the cheekiest move ever, he prank called his direct rival, AT&T engineer Joel Engel. Cooper just says, "Joel, I'm calling you from a real cellular phone." I mean, you can only imagine Engel sitting in his office, just absolutely stunned into silence, realizing Motorola had completely beaten them to the punch on true personal mobility. But let's be clear here, this first taste of freedom was, well, it was heavy.
That first mobile phone, the Motorola Dynatac 8000X, literally looked like a brick. It weighed over a whole kilogram. Imagine holding a bag of flour up to your ear. And the battery? You got a maximum of 30 minutes of talk time. That's it. And the kicker, once those 30 minutes were up, it took a staggering 10 hours to charge it back up. Obviously, wildly inconvenient compared to what we have today, but at the time, magic. It finally broke the chains of the telephone wire.
Era 3. Giving the phone a brand. Fast forward with us to the early 2000s. We had the voice and we had the mobility. The physical hardware was getting smaller and sleeker, but the software was severely lagging behind. Every single mobile company had its own fragmented, clunky operating system. The devices lacked a unified, intelligent brain. Enter Andy Rubin in 2003. Rubin and his partners founded a startup called Android Inc. with a massive dream. But here is a crazy did you know moment that always blows people's minds. Android, the same system powering billions of smartphones globally today, was not originally created for mobile phones. No way.
This is honestly one of the greatest pivots in business history. Andy Rubin's original plan was to build an operating system specifically for digital cameras. The idea was to put a system inside the camera that could easily upload photos straight to the internet. But there was a snag. Rubin quickly realized the standalone digital camera market was just way too small to support the massive growth he was looking for. So, in an absolute stroke of genius, they pivoted. They took that exact same open software concept, aimed it away from cameras, and pointed it directly at the exploding mobile phone market.
And this brilliantly illustrates how fast things can move when the right idea hits at the right time. By 2005, the tech giant Google saw the brilliance of this open software and scooped up Android. It was a total masterstroke acquisition, and they put Rubin directly in charge of the project. Google's goal was to make a free, open, easy system that any mobile hardware company could just pick up and use. After years of intense development, this all culminated in 2008 with the launch of the world's first Android phone, the HTC Dream, also known as the G1, rocking a touchscreen and a slide-out keyboard.
So tying this all together, that incredibly powerful device in your hand did not happen overnight. It took a very specific chronological cocktail of innovations. First, Alexander Graham Bell breaks the silence, giving us the voice in 1876. Then, Martin Cooper breaks the chains, giving us the mobility in 1973. And finally, Andy Rubin and Google give the phone the open brain in 2008. Those three distinct eras seamlessly merge together to create the modern smartphone world we live in today.
We have literally gone from cold telegraph clicks to supercomputers in our pockets in roughly a century. It's just a breathtaking pace of innovation, driven by empathy, intense rivalry, and some seriously brilliant pivots. So I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. If we went from wires physically attached to walls to the incredible smartphones we have today in just a little over 100 years, what exactly is human communication going to look like 100 years from right now? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning and always keep wondering what comes next.